take some of this material. You might be stupid if you believe the Federal Reserve. You might be stupid if you...
Yeah. You might be stupid if you believe the Federal Reserve is federal.
Right. I think we need to jump off right about now.
Yeah. Well,
and Jim and email it off to his producers.
You just might be.
Well, a number of people around the country, in almost all the 50 states now, have been working on a project whereby I'm not going to give the details because the paperwork is not absolutely complete yet on the backside. But this project will enable the American people to afford our military civilian authority. Now, in America, and under our true Constitution and the Articles of Confederation, our real government, the military has the authority to assist the people, not to come in and start arresting the bad guys in Washington and taking over. That they don't have the authority to do. And if they did, it would be considered a military coup or a takeover, however you want to term it, but it certainly wouldn't be constitutional.
Well, we used to think of them in terms of black coup and a white coup. A black coup was the military taking control for them to have control, and a white coup occurred when the military was backed by the people.
Right. And for them to do anything in defense of the American people, first of all, means that they have to refuse orders from Obama, who is in fact not our president because, quite simply, Washington, D.C., the United States as we know it, is not the United States of America. It's a corporation, as is the Federal Reserve, and the IRS is their collection arm. It is wholly and completely owned by foreign entities.
To put it very simply, he is not the president of our government. He is the president of the United States of America, in all capital letters, corporation.
Right, he's the CEO, which is why it makes absolutely no difference where the man was born.
Right.
There are no...
Let me give something here. Okay, a lot of our listeners know that at one point in time I had been asked to run as a vice presidential running mate for an independent. And to this day, I still am registered with the SEC as this person's running mate, even though I have written them, phoned them, and everything else, told them I will have no part of this particular candidate. But in the SEC website, it's the position that I am declared to be holding or running for is vice presidential candidate and CEO. And that is right there on the Federal Election Committee's website.
Right.
That right there tells me this is not a country. This is a business.
Bingo.
Exactly right. And what most Americans don't know, because they're not supposed to know, they're not taught the truth in school, they're not taught the real history of the United States. In fact, George Washington is not the father of our country, he's the conqueror of it. In 1790, he dissolved the sovereignty of the states and made them instead federal districts. So let that sink in. That means that every time you think you're voting to elect a president, you are in fact not. You are voting for one of the two choices that the foreign corporation has chosen as possible CEOs for that corporation.
Sure.
Now, with the advent of the Diebold machine, your vote now counts for nothing anyway, because they just rig it. So,
Terry,
yeah?
this is deeper than that. Well, first of all, I'm going to tell folks, okay, my name is Jim Lovell. I live in West Virginia. If you look at the Articles of Confederation, you will find there's a Jim Lovell who signed it. Yes, we're related. Generation after generation, my family has told everybody else, listen, wars are scams, government's a scam, this, that, and the other. So I'm going to set people straight right now. I come from a long history of people who know the truth. Number two, the Republican Party was incorporated in 1860. It is a corporation by law. The Republican Party has to answer to their stockholders, not the voters. I hope that can sink into some people. It's that evil. I'm sorry, I wanted to back you up. A 1906 voting machine, the mechanical voting machine, I have a patent for it around here somewhere. You can see on the drawing where it could be mechanically rigged, so any race could go the exact opposite. So this goes a long way back, and
yes.
I'm so mad about it, even funny. Terry, we love you dearly. I just had to back you up a little bit.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. The point is that this charade has been going on since 1790. It didn't become nearly as critical as it is today until that started to happen in 1913 with the passage, which it really didn't pass. The 16th Amendment was not lawfully ratified. That has been proven, and people can say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. Well, if you do your homework and you do some study that is easily documented, it was not ratified, and even if it had been, it doesn't make for federal income tax, only for corporations. So the federal income tax came in under FDR, was and is to this day voluntary. They have duped you into thinking that you have to pay it. Now, a lot of people will say, but I'm a patriotic American, everybody's got to do their share. We have to pay for our infrastructure. Well, guess what? Not a single dime of federal income tax ever goes to pay.
Since the 80s, since the 70s, I'm sorry.
Right. Goes to pay for governmental, the infrastructure of the country. We also don't need income tax to pay for all that.
Terry, let me jump in here real quick. Where that IRS money goes is to pay interest on previous debt which has created debt for counterfeit money. So it's all bogus.
Every bit of it. So anyway, back to getting on track. The military takes their orders from the commander-in-chief. We now have someone, and we have had for many, many, many years, posing as the commander-in-chief. However, a CEO, not being a lawful president of a republic, constitutional republic, that's the other thing. They've convinced Americans that we live in a democracy. We certainly do not. This was designed to be and is a constitutional republic. Big difference between
Terry,
the
can
two.
I tell something else in me and my mouth? I'm going to get kicked in here pretty soon. But, folks, I'm going to tell you something. It is not seditious or treasonous to question the policy of a corporation. It is not seditious or treasonous to kick this corporation out of our lawful government. So don't believe any of this trash which you hear that this is treason or this is sedition. No, we are pointing out a corporation and what it's doing in its policies, and Terry does it better than I do.
Well, I tell you what. One of the keys to being successful with all of this was that the bankers, the foreign banking cartel that actually owns our country, and I won't go into who's at the very top, and a lot of that history, we'll leave that for another show. But they also own, there are 7 individuals who own every single media outlet in the United States, and
Bingo.
most of them abroad. They are owned by 7 individuals. And
Rupert Murdoch.
I'm sorry?
Rupert Murdoch.
He's one. And then it narrows down to 2 organizations. Reuters is one. And what is that, Associated Press?
AP, yeah.
Is the other one.
UPI,
But
Press International.
when you examine the actual paperwork, it boils down to 1. So, and I believe that's Reuters.
I would say right off the bat, the same individuals own both the Democratic and Republican parties. Would you venture
Yes, they
a guess?
do.
Of course, we don't really know because the Securities Exchange Commission won't let us know who owns what, but I would almost guarantee they are.
They are. They're just, 2 sides to the same coin. The Republicans do it in a different way, in an opposite way to the Democrats.
Kinky.
But the end result is always the same. So, with that in mind,
wow,
our American military having to take orders from an unlawful individual who is nothing more than a CEO of a corporation and not the president of a nation, and we don't even have a formal government, central government. We have a central corporation. There's a big difference between government and corporation.
Bingo.
But we got to look at, Terry, we also got to look at the fact, when my son came home at Christmas time on his leave, I'd been teaching him all this stuff, and of course, it took him a little bit to catch on, but he finally got it. But as we were going from place to place and what he was noticing, even on the road signs, as we were passing into different counties and townships or cities or whatever, he was noticing the signs that said, about the town, what are we going to...
welcome to Eastman Incorporated Inn?
Yeah, that kind of thing, yeah. And he's like, Mom, I never noticed this before.
I have all my life. I'm going to tell you something right now. You check out your county school board, it's a corporation, for profit, anything, everything. And you
if
can
you
find
look
them at
up the U.S. Congress, it is listed as a corporation, and guess who the head of that corporation is?
Terry, right? You're the head of it?
No, Nancy Pelosi.
Oh, I get you two confused all the time, Terry.
So even our 3 branches of government, what we think is our 3 branches of government, are 3 separate corporations.
The Achilles heel, folks.
Under the umbrella of one corporation.
That's the Achilles heel, folks, and we're going to do something to that Achilles heel.
Okay, now, how do they, why they did all this is the same old, age-old reason. Money. It's always money.
Love of money.
Money and power, which kind of translates into the same thing.
Yep.
And, excuse me, I lost my train of thought there.
Do you have a train of thought? I'd like, where did you get one of those? I had one of those once, I lost it.
Yeah, it better not leave without me. So, all of these years, everything being about money, everything being about a corporation is only in business to make a profit.
And it must answer to the stockholders. That by law, it must answer to the stockholders.
Right. Now, back in, some of you listeners may remember, a few weeks ago, well, it was longer than that, I believe it was the end of November, when I did a show that was based on the Department of Education in the United States, its history, what it is doing to your children now, and why that is happening in the schools. And that went back to 1910 to the meeting minutes of the Carnegie Foundation, in which they were discussing how, if there was another way besides war to control a society, a country,